Welcome to Ask Ms. ERP. The topic of this video is, what is an ERP's ROI? Hello everyone, Ms. ERP here. Everyone always wants to know what their return on investment, or ROI, is. For anything really, but as an ERP or other enterprise application is usually a pretty big investment, your leaders will want some assurance that either implementing or upgrading one will be worth it. Your ERP product vendor or implementation partner will likely be very willing to help you figure out what your return on investment will be, but make sure you understand in detail how they calculated it and what assumptions were made. Likely, they will come back with something like, a new ERP will improve performance by X percentage, or a new ERP service will allow you to reduce headcount by X number of people. In my experience, these are usually so high level as to be useless and end up setting you up for failure with unrealistic expectations. For sure, you will not be able to define your ERP ROI if you have not defined your business goals and how you are going to measure progress against these goals. Traditional project measures, such as on time, in scope, and on budget, only have an indirect relationship on the business value an ERP can bring. Generating business value should be the primary objective of an ERP implementation, not just moving to the cloud or replacing an outdated system. I went through quite a few possible measures of both implementations and ongoing service delivery in videos number 31 and 32, if you need some ideas to get you started. You will need to assign a value to whatever you use as measures. Make sure that the value assignment is based on reasonable and realistic evidence and assumptions, and don't overestimate. Provide a wide accuracy range, such as plus or minus 50%. If you are going to calculate the investment part of ROI, you need to make sure that you have captured all of the costs. If you have gone through the correct formal process to gather your requirements and do an RFP, you should have a pretty good idea of implementation costs. A rule of thumb here is that if it is less than 2% of your company's revenue to implement your ERP, then you're likely doing okay. Make sure that you have also accounted for your own internal staff costs, which might also include some investments in consultants. And if you are using existing hardware, network, internet, or any other associated infrastructure, your application is responsible for a portion of those costs too. What time frame will you be using to calculate your return? I would suggest that it is not just the implementation or upgrade project timeline, as true value from your enterprise application will come over time. You will need to continue to invest in people to be able to take advantage of how your application will evolve over time, either with new functionality offerings or changes in your business processes. And your annual product maintenance or monthly cloud service fees need to be added up for whatever time frame you decide to measure for. Also remember that you will need to deal with upgrades or patches on a regular basis, whether you are in the cloud or still on-premise. I used to recommend a 5-year time frame in which to measure an ERP's ROI, but this is shrinking all the time. It does really depend on the size of your company, how long it will take you to make the change, and what your goals are. Your leaders are the best source to advise what time frame you should be using to calculate your ERP ROI. Calculating the return is more difficult than calculating the investment, as going live is only the beginning to business value realization, and business value is in the eye of the beholder, which is why I advise you to quantify any metrics before you actually start measuring. ERPs are marketed to provide process efficiency, but you need to know how to measure this. Then you will also be able to determine if the system is being used effectively as well. There should be some obvious wins, or the business case to proceed is not very strong. An example is if you have a team of data entry people who are keeping systems in sync, and by implementing an ERP, there will no longer be a need to manually sync the data. So in theory, that data entry team is not needed any longer. But be careful not to include the full team as a cost savings, as there will be many other more value-add activities that these folks could be applied to. Business value must be an iterative and recurring theme in your ERP sustainment approach. You might have high user adoption with your new system, as your users may not have a choice, but this does not always equate to effective user engagement. The end users will need ongoing support. Who is going to document, share, and communicate information? Who will provide training? Who will support the super users? This is an ongoing requirement for both new users and to keep current users up to date with any changes. A huge area of value realization is to leverage and expand the reporting and analytics capability of your ERP. As an example, if one new standard report saves your chief accountant a week's worth of work, you should be able to quantify that. To ensure that you are getting a good return, you will need to continually review your standard processes and improve them thoughtfully for the long term. If everyone is in reactionary mode, this will likely lead to expensive rework. You need people who are able to perform proactive actions, such as to develop new processes, to be able to respond quickly to new business demand, or even to provide estimates for business opportunities. To continue to get the best value, someone needs the time to assess and implement new offerings that come with vendor updates, as well as do research and influence vendors for future enhancements. As you can see, it is tricky to figure out what the value of an ERP is. It might be easier to ask what it would cost your company if you could not get your financial statements out accurately and on time, or if you could not deliver your orders on time, or pay your people. Sometimes a risk avoidance value versus a true quantifiable return value might be easier to include in your ERP ROI business case. All the measures that I mentioned in videos 31 and 32 can be used to put some quantifiable numbers to the benefits on an ERP, but I would suggest it is the much more hard to measure benefits, such as efficiency and effectiveness, which are where the real returns on ERP investment can be realized. Regardless, it is worth it to define some measures to make sure you are on track to realize your goals. This concludes the What is an ERP's ROI topic. There is a link on askmizerp.com to email me to ask questions or suggest topics for future videos. Or you can just add comments on any YouTube video. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and see you on the next video.